Now, I am delighted to share my good friend, Jenny Power, our lead equestrian. And also, I'm going to let Jenny tell you a little bit about herself and how she fell in love with equines.
Well, I'm delighted that you're all here. And I was, of course, very pleased to be asked to speak about my favorite topic today, which is horses. Do you want me to go? Am I able to share the screen now, Max? Okay. Let me get started here. And please bear with me. I am not technically adept.
You
did great.
Yeah, one more step and there we go.
Okay.
The hardest part's over, Jen.
Yeah, thank you. And Max has been, and Steve as well, extraordinarily helpful. I do appreciate their involvement so much. I couldn't have taken this on without you. Okay, from my patrol experience and my work as a volunteer with the Arizona Arabian Horse Association Meet a Horse project, I've realized that many people have no opportunity to interact with horses, and many have misperceptions about them. When not stressed, most horses are curious and like being around people. Today, we will explore why horses may become stressed during encounters with other trail users. I've had trail users tell me we shouldn't have horses on the trail that can't handle interactions or that they're not properly trained. We will look at some reasons why these expectations are unreasonable and what behaviors we can realistically expect. I began riding when I was 6 years old with older cousins who took me trail riding on their farm and gave me lessons. They took me to watch them compete at local horse shows, and I was thrilled that they let me help them. I spent many sleepover nights cleaning saddles and bridles in preparation for their shows. My cousins found a pony at one of the horse shows and convinced my parents to buy him for my 7th birthday. The pony, Rusty, was owned by a 16-year-old boy who sold him to get money to purchase a car. For the first year or more, I doubt the pony even realized I was there. I was so small and ineffective compared to his previous owner. My father spent countless hours leading the pony through the woods and fields around our house so that I could experience riding without getting bucked off. Eventually, I joined a 4-H group, took lessons, and began a childhood of horse shows every weekend for many years, along with my sister, who got a pony a few years after I did. I continued showing horses after moving to Arizona from Ohio when my husband accepted a job offer. I was introduced to endurance riding in the 1990s through a clinic at a stable where I boarded my horse. This was a revelation. I could aggressively trail ride, experience new areas I knew nothing about, and get credit for competing. I dabbled in the discipline off and on until 2002, when I began seriously competing with a new horse, Twister, who I purchased specifically for the sport. Twister is the chestnut horse in these pictures. Endurance riding in the United States is sanctioned through the American Endurance Ride Conference, or AERC. Endurance rides are 50 to 100 miles long with veterinary checks and time limits based on the distance. For example, a 50-mile ride must be completed within 12 hours and includes time devoted to the vet check. In the western part of the country, there is generally just one vet check with an hour hold on a 50-mile ride. Horses are judged on metabolic, soundness, and attitude criteria and must be judged as fit to continue in order to receive a completion. No monetary awards are permitted, and usually the completion awards are a small token, such as a t-shirt, a hoof pick, or a photo from the ride. There are lower distances offered, such as intro rides of 12 miles, where one can experience an event without the commitment of extensive preparation. And limited distance rides of 25 to 30 miles, which are often used to bring along a young horse or one recovering from an injury, or for those people who do not have time to condition their horses for longer distances. Twister has over 3,000 miles in competition and many thousand more in conditioning rides. Twister and I received the AERC Decade Team Award given to a horse and rider team that completes 50-mile rides every year for 10 or more years. The Decade Team Award recognizes longevity in an extreme sport where it is a challenge to keep a horse sound and motivated for so many years. Only 2 or 3% of endurance horses achieve this recognition. This much riding has provided many opportunities for all types of encounters on the trail. I also have a pony that I purchased from a kill pen in Texas. Although Trinket was an impulse buy, I did enlist the help of a trainer to assess him, and we thought he was a good prospect for carriage driving, something I have wanted to do for years, but lacked the time while working and didn't have the right horse. Unfortunately, while Trinket is smart and learned quickly, his past history of abuse and deeply ingrained fear makes him reactive way out of proportion to scary things. As we drove farther from home and encountered more people walking, bicycling, walking dogs, or just working in their yard, Trinket began panic bolting as a reaction to his fear. He's fine with traffic of all kinds, but quite afraid of people. We invested a year of careful training, but bolting is very dangerous with a cart. And after a frightful episode in which the trainer and I were thrown from the cart and injured, we decided that Trinket's best use is as a companion pony. I rehomed him with a new owner, but she did not have the necessary patience for his reactive nature, and so I took him back and accepted that he is likely permanently at home at my barn. I'm currently taking driving lessons with a trainer's pony and looking for a riding and driving large pony or small horse to pursue my dream of carriage driving, both for pleasure driving in the Rio Verde foothills where I live with miles of dirt roads, and possibly for competition in the future. Obstacle courses look like they might be fun. My patrol partner is Carrie Nitro. His barn name is Wiley. Wiley spent the first half of his life competing in dressage, a sport similar in format to ice skating for people. There are required movements that are judged, and the difficulty increases as one moves up through the levels. Wiley was sold to a friend of mine who did 7 50-mile endurance rides on him. Then he and his wife had a baby and did nothing with Wiley for the next 5 years. My friend gave me the horse so that Wiley would have a job. He is very well trained. My trainer said he knows more than I do. He is now 25 years old, and I've had him about 4 years. He is generally quite calm for an Arabian and is willing and good-natured. He loves people and is ideally suited to his patrol responsibilities. So today we will explore the nature of the beast. How do horses perceive their world? What makes them react the way they do? What's with all the rules? Why does everybody have to yield to horses? And how can we, as stewards, use this information to educate trail users to ensure safe, drama-free interactions when encountering horses on the trail? Few people comprehend the mutual cross-species interaction that is required to accomplish the athleticism of a horse and rider team. The average horse weighs 1,200 pounds. makes instantaneous movements, and can become hysterical in a heartbeat. Even the strongest human is unable to force a horse to do anything he doesn't want to do. Nor do good riders allow the use of force in training our magnificent animals. Instead, we hold ourselves to a higher standard of motivating horses to cooperate freely with us in achieving goals of our elite sports as well as mundane chores. Under these conditions, the horse trained with kindness, expertise, and encouragement is a willing and equal participant in the sport. In mounted teams, horses with prey brains and humans with predator brains share largely invisible signals via mutual body language. The critical component of the horse in nature and his ability to learn how to interact so precisely with a human rider is not his physical athleticism, but his brain. Nowhere else in nature do we see such intense and intimate collaboration between two such disparate minds. Taken together, the horse's exceptional touch sensitivity, natural reliance on body language, and purity of learning form the support of communication that is so critical to extreme performance. As a prey animal, the horse's brain and body evolved to survive completely different pressures than our human functions. For example, horses' eyes are set on either side of their head for a panoramic view of the world, and their horizontal pupils allow clear sight along the horizon, but fuzzy vision above and below. Equine brains are hardwired to stream commands directly from the perception of environmental danger to the motor cortex, where instant evasion is carried out. All of these features allow the horse to survive predators. We can teach a horse to overcome these behaviors, but we can't make them go away, nor can we make them see the way we do. How we respond to his fear depends partly on our own vision, which determines our expectation of what the horse sees. Horses do not categorize items, such as bikes, as one element, but note the differences, making each difference something new, unique, and potentially dangerous. While riding with friends after a conditioning ride for an endurance competition, we were riding at a calm walk, returning to the barn where I boarded my horse. A bicyclist came out of a side street and rode toward us. The horses accepted this as something they had experienced before and were not concerned. However, the bike rider, in an effort to be helpful, dismounted the bike and began walking toward us, pushing the bike. As one, the three horses spun and bolted in the direction from which we had just come. Fortunately, none of us experienced an unplanned dismount and were able to stop our horses and turn back to face the now astonished bike rider. One of my friends was using a heart rate monitor to assist in conditioning the horses. He noticed his horse's heart rate was 180 beats per minute. And this is after we had stopped and turned around. Normally, the heart rate at a walk would be in the 50s. This illustrates the reaction to the unexpected. Our horses recognized bikes as being ridden, but none had experienced bikes being pushed with a cyclist walking. Human brains evolved in part for the purpose of predation, hunting, chasing, planning, and even killing, with front-facing eyes, superb depth perception, and a prefrontal cortex for strategy and reason. The horse's brain is designed to notice and evade predators. How ironic, then, that this prey brain is the only one today that shares communication with a predator brain. It offers humanity a rare view into the prey animal's world. Equine vision is different from human vision in almost every way. Acuity, range, eye contact, and detection of peripheral motion, just for starters. Understanding how his vision differs from yours allows you that understanding to work with a horse's visual system instead of against it. Equine eyes are 8 times larger than human eyes. In fact, they are larger than any other land mammal. But a horse's acuity, the ability to discriminate fine detail while focusing on something in the center of the visual field, is considerably worse than ours. The horse sees a broad band of the world to the sides and the back of his body, but it is narrow. The vision is poor above and below his eyes. Sights directly to the horse's side, but on the ground or in the air, are difficult to see unless he moves his head. Equine vision also creates blind spots. A horse cannot see a person standing directly behind them. Surprised from behind, even the sweetest horse can kick in almost any direction. You want to make sure he knows you are there before you enter the kicking range. A second blind spot exists in front of the horse's face, from his eye level to the ground below his nose and out to about 6 feet. A hand suddenly raised will appear to him to have come from nowhere. He cannot see the grass he grazes on or the fingers that reach out to stroke his muzzle. His whiskers around his mouth are used to sense these objects. Horses have a 340-degree range of view when holding their heads still, compared with a paltry 90 degrees in humans. This range is almost 4 times greater than the range we see. Think how dependent we are on sight, how important it is to us. Now imagine we had 4 times that much vision to process every second of the day. We'd be edgy too. For this reason, horses can see many objects that are invisible to their riders. Yet riders can sometimes guess that an invisible object exists by detecting subtle equine reactions. Equine vigilance allows horses to survive 56 million years of evolution. They had to notice slight movements in tall grasses or risk becoming some predator's dinner. Consequently, today it is difficult to slip even a tiny change past a horse, especially a young or inexperienced animal who has not yet been taught to ignore certain sights and sounds. By contrast, humans are much better at concentration than vigilance. The predator brain does not need to notice and react instantaneously to every stimulus in the environment. In fact, it would be hampered by prey vigilance. Ignoring distractions allows you to focus on the task at hand. Horses and humans frequently share their respective attention capacities while riding. Each party helps the other through their primary strengths. Sharing becomes automatic with practice. Over time, the human brain learns to heed signals sent by the equine brain that say, in effect, "Hey, what's that over there?" Likewise, the equine brain learns to sense human signals that counter, "Let's just focus on the trail right here." Horses are excellent at learning, remembering, and communicating, but they do not assess, decide, evaluate, or judge as humans do. While working with Max, preparing for this session, she asked me to describe a horse shying so that those unfamiliar with horses could understand the concept a bit more. I think a horse shying must be what it is like to be teleported. 1 second, all is right with the world. You are enjoying the scenery, or talking with your riding buddies, or marveling at your horse's ground-covering trot. The next second, you're either frantically grasping a horse's neck to hang on, or you're on the ground, with no recollection of how you got there. Some shies are just little flinches. Others may cause you to bite your tongue or feel your back crack, but the big ones are truly frightening. Mountain bike riders may experience similar damage in falls, but a bike doesn't launch you into space from 5 feet off the ground or make decisions on its own. Last year, I was riding Wiley at Brown's Ranch. I had ridden the day before, so Wiley was calm, quiet, and well-behaved the entire ride. As we approached Brown's Ranch Road on Chuckwagon, I was relaxed, holding the reins in one hand, and I glanced north to see if anyone was approaching on the road before we merged to return to the trailhead. There was no one in sight. The next second, I was suspended in the air and realized there's no saving this. I'm going to fall. Steve, who had competed with me in endurance and is my frequent riding partner, told me I sailed over Wiley's shoulder in a perfect somersault, but failed to stick the landing as I fell flat on my back on a very hard trail. I tried to hold on to Wiley, but the sight of me landing at his feet like a sack of feed was too alarming, and he backed up as fast as he could, dragging me with him until I gave up, stopping my shoulder and arm from being further shredded by the dirt. Wiley took off. I recalled Steve asking me if I was hurt, but I needed a minute to assess, and I was quite stunned. So I replied, I don't know, go find Wiley, and continued to lie there. Steve, in a rare display of gallantry, said he wasn't leaving me if I was hurt. So I lied, said I was fine, please go find my horse. At that point, I envisioned Wiley galloping through the breezeway at the trailhead, scattering visitors like bowling pins. Steve left and I sat up. So far, so good. I noticed a little puddle of blood next to me and immediately thought Wiley must have caught himself with his shoe and was injured. Then with relief, I saw it was just my hand bleeding from being cut on the stones, and my horse was probably okay. I stood up, nothing felt broken, and I noticed a post with signs about Brown's Mountain area. I realized that Wiley must have made the turn left on the trail, and with neither of us paying attention, was startled by the sign and shied away from it. Steve returned without my horse, but reported Wiley was waiting just down the hill next to the trail. I refrained from asking why he hadn't brought Wiley back with him, and I walked off to retrieve my horse. Wiley was watching for me, eyes wide, ears pricked forward, and as I got close, I could see his nostrils fluttering and heard the deep rumble of his nickering, as if to say, "There you are, I was so worried." I thanked him for waiting, rubbed his forehead, and picked up the reins. We walked back to the trailhead with Steve chattering on about finding a rock on which I could stand to remount Wiley. I do not subscribe to the adage that one should get right back on the horse if you fall off. I get back on when I feel like it, and today was not the day. As we neared the building, a couple came toward me, beginning their hike. The man looked at my dirt-streaked face, dusty clothes, scraped and bloody hand, arm, and shoulder, and my expression, which did not convey the joy of horse ownership. He smiled and said, "I'll give you $10 for the horse." I smiled back and then heard Steve behind me say, "Don't tempt her." I share this story to illustrate that horses are not predictable. I was riding a horse that was not fresh or full of himself. Wiley is well-trained and seasoned on the trail. There were no bikers, no hikers, no one walking a dog. There was a post with signs. You just never know what's going to be a scary thing. Shying is a prominent equine behavior that might be mediated by human function in well-trained mounts. When a horse of average size shies away from an unexpected stimulus, the rider is sitting on top of 1,200 pounds of muscle that suddenly leaps sideways off all 4 feet and lands 5 yards away. It's a frightening experience and can result in falls that lead to injury or even death. The horse's brain causes this reaction automatically by direct connection between his sensory and motor functions. The human brain takes half a second to process each glance at the world and determine what it has seen: shape, color, size, distance, importance, and so on. Half a second of processing is out of the question for a horse in the wild. He needs to notice a tiny movement in the bushes and step on the gas. Every millisecond of delay could mean death. If the movement turns out to be a bicycle instead of a lion, that's okay. Nothing is lost by running from a bicycle. By breathing steadily, relaxing her muscles, and flexing her body in rhythm with the horse's gait, the rider calms the animal using body language. He responds with body language in which his muscles relax, his head lowers, and his frightened eyes return to their normal size. In practice, to reduce shying, horse trainers teach their charges to slow their reactions and seek human guidance. It is a partnership like no other. Together, a horse and human team experiences a richer perceptual understanding of the world than either member can achieve alone. And ironically, this extended interspecies mind operates well, not because the two brains are similar to each other, but because they are so different. As we've just learned, yielding to horses to ensure safe encounters on the trail is necessary due to their perception of their world around them. People worldwide are familiar and comfortable interacting with hikers and their dogs and with bicyclists, even in the most urban environments. That's not always the case when you interact with equestrians. Although horses were used as a major mode of transportation and a necessity for Americans years ago, today it is common to find individuals who have never touched a horse or been around them. Therefore, the purpose of this next section is to provide stewards with the detailed information on trail sharing with equestrians to help them deliver important safety communication to preserve guests. Trail users should begin by respecting the dedicated parking for horse trailers. Loading and unloading horses is a risky business, and unsuspecting people walking or riding bikes while horses are tied to trailers or being loaded and unloaded increases the risk of something going wrong. Additionally, non-horse people tend to underestimate the amount of space necessary to tie horses to their trailer or to saddle and unsaddle them, and to load horses into the trailer. Vehicles that are parked too close may even make it difficult to move the truck and trailer out of the parking space. When I arrive at a trailhead with my horse in tow, I do feel guilty when the car parking lot is full and the horse trailer lot is not. I understand how other users can be resentful, but hauling a horse is not like bringing your bike or hiking gear to the trailhead. Hooking up your trailer, loading tack, water, hay, and your horse is a lot of work. Often equestrians drive quite a distance to be able to ride at the preserve. Arriving to find the horse trailer lot crowded with guided bike tour vans and their customers' cars or buses or other vehicles leaves no option for a horse trailer to park. Communication is key. So let's begin with bikes on the trail. Please ride with awareness that you are not alone on the trail and that horses could be just around the next curve. When approaching from behind, make sure the horse and rider know that you're there. Saying bike is appropriate to call out as it is readily understood. Wait for acknowledgement. Remember that the horse cannot see you. There is some disagreement among equestrians whether bells on bikes are helpful. Some appreciate the warning. Others believe the sound to be unnatural and unexpected and can startle a horse. The human voice is familiar and reassuring. Don't be afraid to use it. Stop a safe distance behind and speak in a conversational tone. A few years ago, I was leading a group of 8 riders on an Arabian Horse Association ride at Brown's Ranch. A group of 5 or 6 bike riders approached from behind and politely asked to pass. They waited while we moved all of the horses to the side of the trail, and as the first rider passed us, he repeated, "Hello, horses, I'm a human." He made us all laugh, and I felt certain he must have attended a preserve education event of some sort. Equestrians should position their horse off the trail with their hindquarters away from the trail to allow you to pass. Yield means waiting until it's safe to pass. Pass at a slow speed. Horses are humbling. Just when we think we can predict their behavior, they often prove us wrong. So exercise caution, even if the rider assures you, "My horse would never kick." When approaching from the front, bike riders should speak to the equestrian and ask the preference. Should they stop or go? Last weekend, I led a group of 10 equestrians from the Arizona Arabian Horse Association on a trail ride at Brown's Ranch. On the way back, we encountered a bike rider who did slow down when he approached us, but continued to ride off the trail to get past me, and then appeared to be assessing how he could weave his way through the following 9 horses. I asked him to stop, and he seemed annoyed, but complied, probably due to the large tree that was blocking his path. I briefly explained yielding. He didn't seem happy, but at least he remained still until the rest of the riders passed him. The yield concept sometimes seems difficult for people to grasp. Equestrians will try to accommodate those riding uphill and will move aside in time to prevent the bikes from having to stop. Continue at a slow pace if moved forward. Stop if not motion to move forward, and wait until the horse is safely off the trail and then pass at a slow speed. Hikers should stop walking, speak to the rider, and move to the side of the trail, being careful not to step in cactus or into areas favored by snakes. On a hill, hikers should move to the uphill side of the trail to avoid being knocked off the trail if the horse bumps into you in passing. There is no need to climb rocks, hide behind signs or trees. Stay out where the horse can see you. Several years ago, I chose Marcus Landslide as the first solo ride away from home for my young horse, Mash. All went well, and I was heading back when a group of 5 or 6 people coming toward me stopped to read a large sign explaining the landslide activity. When they saw Mash, they all stepped behind the sign and stopped talking. Mash was astonished. Where did they go? Why are they hiding? Are they going to jump out at me? I was unable to get him to move forward. In fact, he was pretty adamant about wanting to turn around. I finally convinced the people to come out from behind the sign and ask them questions so that they had to speak to me. Mash quickly realized they were just humans and eagerly approached to see if they had brought him treats. Both bike riders and hikers should avoid using the time waiting for horses to pass to remove items from your pack, put on or take off jackets, or make other flapping, quick motions until the horse is well past. My endurance horse, Twister, is a drama queen, but basically unafraid of anything. I have successfully ridden him in Parada del Sol and Fiesta Bowl parades in full native Arabian costume. And parades can be a terrifying experience. So an encounter on Whiskey Bottle with an older couple hiking should have been routine. They moved to the uphill side, could not avoid stepping up on rocks as that trail is full of them. They were about at my level while we talked about their hike, and I wished them well and then continued on my way. As soon as I passed, the man jumped off his rock right behind Twister, and his arms were raised and he was flapping a plastic grocery bag that he had been carrying. Twister bolted forward like he had been hit in the butt with a broom. I felt fortunate to stay with him and not be left behind. When I got him stopped, I turned to see the couple, now well away from me, continuing down the trail, blissfully unaware of the incident they had caused. Dogs should be restrained so as not to lunge at horses. The perceived threat could result in a kick. Horses are much more likely to kick at a dog than a person. Kicking is a fight response initiated if the horse feels threatened or trapped. A study in Equus magazine reported the impact of a kick from a steel-shod hoof results in broken bones 75% of the time. Avoid putting yourself or your horse at risk. Most equestrians are pleased to share their horses with trail users, and horses generally enjoy the attention. I carry Wiley's favorite cookies to give to people who want to feed him a treat. It is endearing how many people seem to enjoy this little interaction, and Wiley is happy to accommodate them, even offering knickers of appreciation. If you'd like to pet a horse, just ask permission. And if the rider approves, pet the horses on their shoulder or neck, remembering that they cannot see your hand approaching their faces and could be startled or feel threatened. Sometimes things go wrong in spite of our best intentions. The horse is spooked, the rider yells. If the encounter goes poorly, understand that this reaction originates from fear. When fear recedes, anger takes its place. Those who live with horses on a daily basis have been bitten, kicked, stepped on, knocked down, thrown, bucked off, fallen on, or bolted with. They can imagine the worst, and it can be frightening. Just say, "I'm sorry that happened," and let it go. That should diffuse the situation without assigning blame. Have fun with your horse encounters. They are wonderfully engaging animals, and equestrians are irrationally fond of them. And if you're ever at a loss of what to say to an equestrian, just tell them how pretty their horse is, and you'll immediately be considered of above average intelligence. Thanks again for being here today. Let me know if you have any questions.
Great. Thanks so much, Jenny. That was wonderful. It really helps us all to understand that the horses see the world in a very different way than we do. But we all love being on the trail and being out of doors, and thanks for helping us to learn how to share. I did have a couple of questions that people put in the chat. You can close your presentation now.
Okay. There we go. And how do I get you back? Stop share. There we go.
There we go.
Oh.
Okay, that's great. So Janine wanted to know, what is the average lifespan of horses?
Generally, most breeds live to be in their mid-20s, maybe late 20s. Arabians and many pony breeds can live well into their 30s or longer.
Oh, that's great. Are horses ever bitten by rattlesnakes? And if they are, is the venom react the same as it does in humans? Are there any issues?
Yes, it does. Generally, I have never heard of a horse being bitten on the trail. Usually horses, and they're usually younger ones that are inquisitive, are bitten on the face. when they hear the noise or see a snake in their paddock or in the barn. It's very dangerous then because their airways swell and it's very hard for them to breathe. They often advise people to keep sections of hose available to insert in their nostrils to prevent the airways from being closed off. Horses are given anti-venom, and swelling is the major danger.
Do horses go through any kind of snake training, like, like they have for dogs?
No, I haven't heard of any training like that. I do know that the horses seem naturally wary of the rattles. Perhaps it's just instinctive, but when I've heard them on the trail, when we pass the snakes, my horses watch for them. Like every stick or root that we see after that is suspect of a snake.
Right, good. So Anita said, she's noticed that most equestrians walk their horses, on the trails, kind of a walking pace. But she did come upon one rider that was trotting down Browns Ranch Road. It was a little concerning because it is, multi-use trails, and that is a really popular area. Are there any regulations as far as what pace horses can go in the preserve?
No, there's no regulations, but I think that equestrians should abide by the guidelines that are posted that it's a congested area. I rarely trot unless we're way out, like Hawk Nest or the Divide or somewhere that's farther away and the sight lines are good so that you can see bikes coming. I know that the endurance riders use the preserve for conditioning their horses for distance. But they often go during the week when there are fewer users and they are farther out away from the trailheads to avoid congestion. It would not be a good idea to trot on Browns Ranch Road. There's just too many people.
Right, I agree. Thank you so much. Does anybody else have any other questions? If you do, why don't you just unmute yourself and ask? Okay, you gave us so much good information. There's nothing else to ask. It was wonderful, Jenny. Thank you so much. Really appreciate all the time you put into this. I know I feel like I'm an equestrian expert right now.
But now I have to get you on a horse.
Thank you, Jenny.
Thanks.
Thanks very much.
Jenny.
Thanks. Nice to see everyone. Don't forget to join us on April 28th for our next Lunch and Learn. Hope to see you out there on the trail.